This week in game news, the long-anticipated A Hat in Time is now set to be released in 2017, former Sony executive Adam Boyes has become chief executive of Iron Galaxy, Nintendo's value as a company has dipped a little, we got our hands on the Great Whale Road and have plenty to say about it, a Starcraft MMO has been launched and we're giving away a Steam key for Robot Roller Derby Disco Dodgeball. This is the Blackman and Robin Game News Update. Now, just as a quick heads up, we're taking next week off. Game News Update will return in a fortnight. Regarding that Steam key giveaway, this week we're giving away a key for Robot Roller Derby Disco Dodgeball. It's a fantastic arena FPS that I've spoken about on numerous occasions, and it's well worth playing. To enter, all you have to do is follow us on Twitter or Instagram at Blackman and Robin, and let us know what you thought about this week's episode. Or, because we're taking next week off, share some game news that you think deserves coverage. We'll be sharing our favorite thoughts on our show when we return. Our winner this week is N-Twin from Germany, who sends their regards. Congratulations, N-Twin. Have fun with Boyd. To kick off this week's game news, Pokemon Go. Yep, we're opening with that game again because apparently it's changed the world. Now this week, the news isn't all that great. For starters, Nintendo's crazy meteoric financial spike in stock value has hit a ceiling and is on its way back down again, as is tradition for booms and busts. The reason for this, however, is interesting and maybe a little depressing, as it comes on the heels of Nintendo's announcement to developers that Pokemon Go wouldn't have the biggest impact on their profits or business practices. It's probably for the best that they've made this announcement at this stage, since a bunch of people are buying Nintendo stock, and if they were to sell it all at the end of the year, realizing that Pokemon Go wasn't the total cash cow for Nintendo that they imagined it to be, it would be really bad. Now, Nintendo is still profiting from Pokemon Go, and it's worth bearing in mind that the game's also the work of Niantic and the Pokemon Company, the latter of which is a Nintendo subsidiary. Add to this the fact that Google has a substantial interest in Pokemon Go, having invested in the game, and you'll see where the money's heading. During the San Diego Comic-Con last week, a Pokemon Go panel was held, and Niantic revealed a few interesting things. They're planning on improving Pokemon training, making it a lot more interesting than it is right now, though they didn't really reveal details about that. They want to introduce trading, and they also have plans to fix gym poaching, in which one player will insert their Pokemon into a gym right after another player has defeated the gym leader. They've also introduced the free team leaders for Team Mystic, Team Valor, and Team Instinct. Valor's is undoubtedly the coolest. The developers are also very aware of the free step bug and are working on fixing it. In other Pokemon Go news this week, the Pokemon Go Plus accessory, that is the cute Pokeball-shaped Bluetooth battery sucker, it's this thing that'll vibrate and flash whenever Pokemon are nearby, thus allowing you to play without your eyes glued to the screen, and thus maybe avoid walking into mud pits in the middle of Arkansas at 2 a.m. Well, that thing has been delayed out to a September release. Originally, the device was supposed to be released at the end of this month. Nintendo released their consolidated financial highlights this week, which were pretty boring unless you're an accountant. However, there was one interesting tidbit of information in there. For our smart device business, says Nintendo, following Miitomo, which launched in March this year, we will release new apps such as Fire Emblem and Animal Crossing. By continuously introducing apps for smart devices, we aim to maximize the population that has access to Nintendo IP. Alongside creating new demand, we aim to increase the synergistic effect on Nintendo's dedicated game system business. What this means is that besides the fact that we're getting Animal Crossing and Fire Emblem themed mobile games, Nintendo's revealed that they'll be trying to use these games as a hook to pull in more customers to their core franchises. Basically, release a Fire Emblem game on mobile with wide appeal that serves as an ad for the rest of the franchise, and indeed to convince more casual players to purchase dedicated hardware. Will this succeed? That's hard to say. Bear in mind, Nintendo's been weakest on the mobile, social, and online fronts for a long time now, Speaking as a fan of Wii U, I'd say it's the weakest aspect of the console right now, which is regrettable. Still, it is interesting to see that Nintendo's going forward with this, as they've expressed tremendous reluctance in the past to associating their IPs with third-party platforms. I can't blame them after the disastrous CDI Legend of Zelda games. We don't have to talk about those. There's the chance that you're a fan of the Sonic franchise. Starting in 1991, Sega introduced their best-known franchise to the world as a rival to Nintendo's Mario. Over the years, the Sonic games have varied quite wildly in quality, ranging from paradigm-shifting platformers to unplayable trash. See Sonic 06 for details. This week, Sega unveiled Sonic Mania as part of the 25th anniversary celebration for the series. Sonic Mania is a 2D platformer that adds some new mechanics, such as a drop dash, while staying true to the roots of the series. Now there's a lot of excitement going around for this one, and for good reason. Taxman and Self, a pair of superfans of Sonic who have actually done work on Sonic fan games, are developing Sonic Mania. A certain Super Bunny Hop has done a fantastic job over on his YouTube channel explaining just why this is a big deal. It's well worth checking that video out. We'll have a link to that for the post of this week's episode over at blackmanandrobin.com. Now, Sonic Mania is set to be released in spring of 2017 for the PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and PC. That wasn't the only Sonic game unveiled over the weekend. Sega also revealed a new trailer for something called Project Sonic 2017. That's a working title, as you may surmise, and now the game is coming out during the 2017 holiday season for the Nintendo NX, PC, PlayStation 4, and Xbox One. From the looks of things, it's more of a new school Sonic game. We don't know much about it, but it is coming from the developers of the critically acclaimed Sonic Generations, and it involves both the chubby old Sonic and the newer, more aerodynamic Blue model. We'll probably see more of this game as well as Sonic Mania later in the year. In-game releases this week, Marvel Ultimate Alliance and Ultimate Alliance 2 were re-released on Windows, Xbox One, and PlayStation 4. Set in the Marvel Universe, this RPG series started in 2006. The original game was released on the Xbox, Xbox 360, PC, PS3, PlayStation 2, PSP, Wii, and Game Boy Advance. While the GBA version of the game was critically panned for being completely lame, the other versions of the game garnered critical acclaim and a lot of praise from players. The game's sequel, which was released in 2009, was also well received and covered the story of the Superhuman Registration Act. We had a bit of a civil war going on there. Unfortunately, civil war erupted over the state of the game's PC port. Thus far, the Steam reviews for both the first game as well as its sequel are largely negative due to these versions of the game, which are supposed to be the definitive versions, lacking a whole bunch of features, characters, and being plagued by bugs. Venom, Hulk, Doctor Doom, and others are absent from the first game. What's worse is that the bugs that are in these versions of the game are bugs that weren't present in the original game. It's a pity, really, as a whole bunch of people were looking forward to this game. Unfortunately, Activision kinda ruined the ports. Seeing as the games are being sold for $40 individually, and for $60 as a bundle, it's really unacceptable that these games have these issues. These are 10-year-old games being sold at full price. You'd imagine that, at the very least, they'd contain all content, as well as, actually work. Over on Twitter, Phil Roseman, the Marvel Games creative director, has asked players to tweet him with the bugs and other issues that they've encountered with the game. While it's awful that the game was released in this state, at least it appears that they have some intention to fix it. Meanwhile, Batman Arkham Knight is still glitchy, but that's a video for another day. Quadrilateral Cowboy was released on Steam this week for Windows. It's an adventure game featuring puzzles centered around hacking. Now, you don't have to come from a hacking background to use the game's programming language, though if you do have some programming knowledge, it'll definitely help you solve the puzzles. Now, Quadrilateral Cowboy is coming from Blendo Games, and they have a history of very unusual genre-busting games, and this is no exception. It's got this really cool retro cyberpunk aesthetic. From what I've been hearing, the game itself is fantastic. It tells a weird but exciting story. It's received great critical reception, and the players really seem to love it. So if you're in the market for a cool new puzzle game, check out Quadrilateral Cowboy. It will challenge you. Are you in the market for a wacky new Metroidvania? Headlander may be up your alley. It's a game about a world in which people have left their bodies to be uploaded into computers. As you may guess, things have gone wrong. The villains in the game are hedonistic robots. I kid you not. I feel like that says enough about the game, but it doesn't, because in this game you're playing as a disembodied head in a 70s-inspired sci-fi world, and you have to pilot your head into robot bodies in order to get through levels. Yeah. It's a really weird platformer, but it's been getting great critical reception, and it's currently available on Steam for Windows as well as on the PlayStation 4. From what I've heard, it combines some really good elements of classic Metroidvanias with some really new mechanics. The body switching for the puzzle solving, for instance, is quite cool. While I've not yet tried it, I really love the look of the game. It's not too often that you see vintage sci-fi used for an aesthetic. I mean, sure, there's stuff styled after old B-movies from the 50s and 60s like The Great Tower of Monsters, and there are occasionally games that are 80s styled, but 70s sci-fi just seems to be so overlooked. Maybe one of these days we'll get a silent running gardening game? A man can hope. If you're looking for a new strategy RPG, you might want to look into The Great Whale Road. Released on Steam this week for Windows, it's set in the Dark Ages and puts you in charge of some Vikings. Now, the game is currently in early access, and right now only the Danes are playable. I played some of the game, and I have to say, it's showing a lot of promise. At first glance, I was expecting something like the Banner Saga, and indeed, the game does take some cues from Stoic's fantastic SRPG series. However, it also seems to draw quite heavily on the Oregon Trail for some aspects of gameplay, particularly with regard to resource management. Now, the Great Whale Road starts you off in your first year leading your Viking village. It's up to you to decide how to allocate work. You're granted a finite number of points that can be put into different aspects of labor. So, for instance, you could put labor into farming in order to guarantee that you'll have enough crops for the end of the year, or you could focus more on hunting, which yields a little bit of food, but also a few pelts, which are very valuable for trading. Then, maybe you'll pump resources into diplomacy to improve relationships with nearby villages, and make it easier to strike up bargains when trading, or perhaps you'll train up warriors to take their resources by force. Whatever you choose, you're going to want to choose well, as these decisions will impact the rest of your year. Now, once you've decided on where to allocate labor, the months start passing and events occur. People in your village will get injured. Now, do you heal them with rough, dangerous medical methods, or do you turn them over to priests for faith healing and traditional medicine? A ship full of dead men washes up on shore around the time that a plague's going around. Do you loot the ship for valuable supplies, or burn it, taking no risks? At the end of the year, you can take sail to complete a mission and advance the game's story. This is where the meat of the gameplay resides. After picking a team of warriors, you embark on your Viking longboat and head for your destination. Now, along the way, you'll be beset by bandits, troubled by issues relating to your ship and crew. You can expect fights to break out, and never bet on the squirrel. Now, suppose some pirates do attack you, and you choose to engage them in battle. The game will shift into a combat mode. That plays pretty interestingly. It feels like the combat in most SRPGs. Your units are placed on a board on opposing sides, and they can be moved in various directions to fight. What sets the combat of the Great Whale Road apart is that it has a card element. There's no mana involved, rather, cards can be used to modify the attack and defensive abilities of units based on what turn in the game it is. So, if you're holding a card with a 7, you can't play it until the 7th turn, but you can shuffle it back into your deck in hopes of drawing something that you can use immediately. I thought it was a little strange that the enemy AI could draw a ton of units from their deck, whereas I could at maximum pick the 3 other warriors I chose to go with me on the journey in between a bunch of attack and defense buffs. That felt imbalanced as I was consistently outnumbered by enemies, however it also made victory all that much sweeter. Also keep in mind, the version of the game I played was not finished at all. At this point, there really isn't that much deck building to the game, so if that's what you're looking for, you might want to hold off on this one for a while. That said, I am expecting to see the strategic element of choosing what units come along with you improve as the game is developed. Now, the combat ends when one side's leader is defeated. Seeing as this is the first unit that's placed on the board, you have to carefully strategize to avoid getting knocked out of a match far too early, but you don't want a battle to drag on for too long either, because it would be bad for the health of the rest of your units. Now, there's still more to the game besides combat. While you're sailing, you can choose to drop by other villages for trade, you can drop in and rest your units and restore their health, and you can listen out for rumors in taverns. You can also go hunting and sell the resulting pelts for extra silver, which you can then use to buy extra resources at trading posts. Overall, I really like the decision that the Great Whale Road is going in. I'm a big fan of games like FTL, Faster Than Light, and the Banner Saga. The thing is, most of these games get their sense of urgency and progression from a story that has an ultimate goal that's constantly exerting pressure on the player. So in FTL, it's the chase led by rebel starships and the goal of ending the war, whereas in the Banner Saga, it's the end of the world and everybody's morale and safety. For the Great Whale Road, the finished game will need some sense of urgency to come from somewhere in order to keep players engaged and make decisions meaningful. The story, as it sits right now, is interesting in and of itself, but it just doesn't have a sense of urgency to it. It's worth keeping in mind, as I've said before, that plenty of the game is unfinished. A lot of the game isn't well explained at this point, and there's a real lack of proper feedback mechanisms. For instance, I bought an axe for a member of my party 4 times because the game didn't indicate in any way, except by the shrinking number of my supply of silver coins, that I'd actually purchased the axe. Then too, there are glitches. During a playthrough, I had to exit out of the game the hard way due to something bizarre. The days started flying by, and multiple events occurred at once. Imagine, if you will, the user interface cluttered with 15 different options, all of them overlapping each other. That happened to me. So you might want to pick up the Great Whale Road if you're looking to get into a cool RPG early in its development, but please, bear in mind that it has a long way to go, and it might be best to wait until the game's more polished. Now, if there's one thing that the game has going for it, besides its tremendous potential as a fun, seafaring RPG, it's the gorgeous aesthetic. Even though the Great Whale Road is unfinished, it's clear that a lot of hard work went into the look and feel of the game, which I really appreciate. I'll definitely be keeping an eye on the Great Whale Road. And now for a brief word from our sponsor.
Are you being denied credit or paying high interest rates? Your credit score could be the problem. You need Credit Repair Pros, where we work directly with the credit bureaus and your creditors to challenge inaccurate information on your credit report to help you transform your credit score into the one you need to get the things you want, like a new car, a new home, even a new job. Call Credit Repair Pros to speak with a credit expert and find out how we'll work to improve your credit by helping remove inaccurate items from your credit reports. For over 15 years, we've helped thousands resolve their credit issues, and we've helped remove over 500,000 negative items, like charge-offs, late payments, foreclosures, even bankruptcies. So don't wait. Call Credit Repair Pros today and start rebuilding your future. Credit Repair Pros, where great credit begins. Call now for your free credit consultation. Credit experts are standing by.
Call 1-800-518-1593. That's 1-800-518-1593.
In crowdfunding news this week, a game called Glitched caught our attention. The game's an RPG with an interesting story. The protagonist slowly becomes aware that you, the player, exist. It's a pretty interesting premise. Bear in mind, this isn't the first RPG to break the fourth wall. Undertale does this pretty well in its own way. Glitched, however, looks like it's really doing its own thing, so while it might draw some inspiration from Undertale, it doesn't look like a ripoff or anything. It also looks like it draws quite heavily on the glitch art aesthetic, and that seems pretty fitting considering the theme of the game. Glitched is set to be released on Mac, Windows, and Linux in 2018. If you'd like to try the game out, there's a demo available to download from its Kickstarter page. Maybe you're on the hunt for a new MMO, and maybe you happen to be a fan of Starcraft. If only there were a Starcraft MMO, what would it be called? World of Starcraft? Nah, it's kinda lame. Starcraft Ghosts? That's not particularly descriptive. Maybe, just maybe, this game could be called Starcraft Universe, and instead of being an officially sanctioned Blizzard game... Okay, you get where I'm going with this, right? This week, a second crowdfunding campaign for the fan-made MMO Starcraft Universe hit Indiegogo. Now, this game is a mod of Starcraft 2 set in an alternate version of the game in which the bad guys won. Now, Starcraft Universe isn't officially a Starcraft game, but it is something that Blizzard has given their alright to. It was originally called World of Starcraft, but that was a little too on the nose and set off Blizzard's lawyers. So the game was changed to Starcraft Universe, and with that, Blizzard said, we're fine with this. So long as the game is not being sold for profit. That's the reason for the second crowdfunding campaign, because the game has gone into open beta this week, and the second campaign is sort of a loophole around the no selling your game with Blizzard IP rule. You can download the game for free from Battle.net's StarCraft 2 Arcade. There's a chance that you've heard of the high-concept RPG Upsilon Circuit. It's a game that only 8 people can play at a time. It's more of a playable online game show. The catch is that you can only play the game once. Once you die, you're dead for good. Now, to keep things interesting, the audience has a measure of control over the game show. Seeing as you can only ever play once, the price of admission's low. $5. It's experimental, and I must say it's pretty bold. While spectating video games online is a 21st century phenomenon, actually being able to participate in games as a spectator is a rather new concept that an increasing number of games are adopting. You can check out Upsilon Circuit on Indiegogo. It's not a game, but this week, a documentary on the indie game scene in Japan was released. Titled Branching Paths, the movie is available on Steam. Directed by Anne Ferrero, Branching Paths is an inside look at the trials and joys of independent game development in Japan. Now, I've not yet seen it, but I have heard good things about it. It's interesting, really, to see how indie games have gone around the world. Japan's generally not the first place to think about when it comes to indies, but they're there too. Check out the trailer.
それは絶対評価されると思ってて、で世界からお金が集まってくるわけだから。
まあそっからちょっとずつだね。一人でゲームもう一回作るところから始め直してみようかとか、ちょっとでも仲間を集めてゲーム作れるのかなとか、そういうことを想像してた。
Well, that's it for this week's game news. For all the latest game news, reviews, previews, and interviews, follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Blackman and Robin. Follow me at Jordan_Cameron for my own views, and don't forget to tell us what you thought about this week's episode. You'll be entered to win a copy of Robot Roller Derby Disco Dodgeball.